Alright, so today we will be tackling one of the most controversial topics that you could possibly imagine. And no, the topic we will be discussing today is not abortion. Today, we will be discussing the topic of tunes who SOS shop in the full district, and what we think of this. Is it a good thing? I don't think there's much argument to be made for this making the game better, but let's talk about it. Is it a good thing for the game? Is it a bad thing for the game? What are the pros and the cons? What can be done about it? And how big of a deal is it? So that's basically a little rundown of what we'll be talking about in this video. Expect it to be just around 10 minutes long. I don't want to keep you here all day. If you have any different opinion, of course, I really like to hear from you guys on these type of videos, so please leave a comment and let's get straight into the damn video. So for this topic, I think it actually makes a lot more sense to start with the cons as opposed to the pros of this issue. So let's talk about the cons. So first and foremost is it makes a lot of runs into an absolute disaster. This was clearly noticeable in the run that I'm recording here. We started with 8 tunes. I'll give you a hint, we finish with just about a quarter of the people we start with. Not going to give anything away too much, but quite a few tunes go sad, quite a few just disconnect. The run basically ends in an unmitigated disaster because all the tunes go out of their way to leave, and that's their decision. So we can clearly see that this end VP goal, with at least over half the tunes coming into this VP with the goal of finishing it, it does not end with it that they want it to, because of this whole shopping system where people can leave without really any punishment, can go get another group. It's very hard to remember who ditched last time, and there's huge recycling of new tunes. It's very unlikely one will ever get caught for this, and it just turns the run into a disaster for the remaining tunes, because they're going to have to spend more time. If they're not good, you have a good chance to die. Actually, the footage I got was pretty unique in how just absolutely terrible the run went. Usually you don't have it get this badly. Usually tunes would just leave if it got this badly, but the point being, if you just want to try to finish every single VP you're a part of, it gets pretty damn messy with these shoppers, and you also just end up having to leave more, and it just makes it very inconvenient to get a group in the full district, because you know if it's a bad card, there's probably at least a 50% chance that the VP's run is going to turn to hell, because of all the people who are probably going to shop and leave. But now, I just want to do a little quick thing where I'm going to try to play devil's advocate and talk about the other side just very briefly, and essentially the argument of the other side would be that, hey, this SOS card is completely worthless to me, I only care about myself, and I'm going to leave, because there's no reason for me to stay, it's not my responsibility, the group can probably win without me, and I'm just going to save myself some time by leaving and get another group. You can't prove why I left, I'm just leaving. And the counter-argument side would heavily be around the topic of, this is not a big deal, it's just a card, you can just get another group, and I don't have any obligation to stay beyond, I suppose, just getting the group. Now, what some tunes like to do, at least this is what I sometimes do when I'm in a more grindy mood, is I'll leave between the second and third round, because just doing the first 2 cog rounds takes a little bit less time than leaving during the third round, and then I'm not hurting anyone else's survival. I definitely don't think leaving is a bad idea in that instance, unless the tunes need you to finish the pie round, which is very, very rarely. But really, the arguments that favor shopping not being a big deal mostly resolve around selfishness and the idea that it's not a damn big deal for everyone to just look out for themselves in this team-based game, and that if this is something that really bothers you, you just need to kind of grow a pair, I guess, some people would say. And a lot of people would just say that you really just need to look out for yourself and get over it. It's not that big of a deal to just find another group. And so that is the prevailing thought process, at least from what I've seen of tunes who don't think this is a big deal. Or alternatively, they just engage in misbehavior and they consider every VP to be primarily about the reward as opposed to the journey or anything like that, and because they only see the VP within the scope and the schema of the reward you actually get, they don't think it's that big of a deal to just go ahead and leave when they're not getting a very good reward. And you'll even see this in shopping groups when like a particular individual maxes like a couple of cards or whatever. They don't really care, they'll just leave on the cards they max because they don't need it, and if you needed that card, oh well, sucks to be you. They're just looking to help themselves out. So it really, I guess, just determines about like what your mantra is about helping other people versus helping yourself. And I know you guys are thinking I'm going to go one way on this issue, but I think I might surprise you a little bit in what I have to say in the next part. So I generally understand the arguments to both sides on this issue, and I generally would say that from a moral standpoint, from a bigger picture standpoint, from even the kind of a logical standpoint of the greater way that things work, this idea that shopping is a big deal is definitely the prevailing attitude, and it definitely has a lot of basis in fact. But for me, in the way that I look at the game, I actually don't consider shopping and leaving on SOS shop. Like, I don't consider leaving a VP if you don't like the card, or other tunes freaking out about that. I don't consider it to be as big of a deal as a lot of other people do. And the main reason for this is that the way I play the game is I don't rely very heavily on my random teammates. I have a whole video, it's my most popular video, and it's talking all about why Toontown players aren't very good teammates. It's very inherently ingrained into the structure of this game. And because of that, I just never really relied very heavily on my teammates for anything I did. So for me, it just doesn't matter if people stay or not. I don't think about that in my game plan. I'll just adjust and I'll find another way. And I'll make that decision. If like 4 people leave because they're shopping, I'll decide if it's worth my time to stay or not for myself. And if other tunes are making independent, selfish decisions, then it just makes it easier for me to do the same thing. So, quite honestly, if everybody played this game in a very independent and selfish manner, I'd be completely fine with it because it would make everybody at least a little bit more straightforward. And for me, I could just make my independent, selfish decisions, which would be very straightforward and basic, and for the most part wouldn't be that big of a deal. But to me, it just doesn't matter that much because, I mean, if everyone else is shopping, I may as well just shop too, because I'll just go back and get another better card myself. I don't really go out of my way to do it in river runs because that's just not, I just don't like the feeling of getting a reputation, especially because I make YouTube videos. If people saw me leaving runs, it would be kind of funky and kind of messy. I don't want people going on this video being able to complain, you're a shopper, because I'm not. I don't shop with random tunes because I'm too afraid of the backlash. That's really the only reason why. Quite honestly, if I was a nobody, there's a pretty good chance that I'd consider doing this once in a while, because especially probably between the first and second round when that cage goes down, because it really just, I don't think that making individual decisions once in a while that hurt the group a little bit is as big of a deal as everyone makes it out to be. All you have to do, if you don't get a group, if you don't get a full group, if you're running an Uber or anything like that, you just have to exit out and come back again. There's no penalty besides losing a couple minutes of your time. And you get a better reward. So to me, honestly, my central thesis that I haven't really gotten to yet, but what I'm kind of trying to get to is, I would just prefer if everybody just left if the card was bad, or if they even just took the bad cards out of the game, and either way, it would just make shopping not a thing. I guess the problem of taking the bad cards out of the game is it's kind of ambiguous because not everybody stays for the same thing, so that's not going to work. But quite honestly, if they just either made it so you could carry all the cards in the game and got rid of like a couple of the really bad ones, or alternatively, if they just, I don't know, it was just a common behavior that everybody engaged in to leave when the card was bad and just regroup, it would make this so much easier because then you wouldn't have these conflicting interests. Because you wouldn't have people fighting over 2 different ideas about what to do. You wouldn't have people who are trying to shop and people who just wanted to get a run. It would just be established, okay, this is a bad card, we'll just hop back in. I definitely think under this system we need to make it at least 16 cards or something like that, but I know it's a little bit idealistic to say all this stuff, but to me, quite honestly, just the way I play the game and my philosophy on the game is very, very independent. I don't really make decisions that are contingent on other people. Like, if everybody leaves on an Allure SOS, I'll get the 1 or 2 who are left to stay. I'll beg them and convince them to stay, and we'll finish the run. And if nobody stays, I don't know what I'll do then, but that so rarely happens. Usually you have like 2 or 3 people leave, and then you just kind of do like a 4-man, like you guys saw in this video. You just have to be creative, and you have to adapt to this. Now, if you're playing an Uber, you're probably straight out of luck because you dampened yourself by doing that. You hindered yourself by making you a less useful teammate, which made your team have to carry you in the first place. So, but if you're a full strength tune that has all your gag tracks, you can adapt very easily on the fly to something. So if I just want to get a run done, I don't want to go again, it's not hard at all to adapt on the fly. And if I want to stay for a card other people don't want to, I can easily adapt on the fly to that. You just have to be a little bit more creative, and you have to figure out ways that are going to help you win that run. If you noticed in this particular run, me and the other mouse that danced, neither of us had to use any rewards to win. We just had to be smart and safe about it, and essentially it didn't matter that the people on the other side weren't very good players, and it didn't matter that we had 4 people shop. We both wanted to win a VP, and we won the VP by just being creative enough and working together. And so, for everyone who's freaking out so much about the issue of shopping, I would recommend, first of all, if it's just going to be a huge headache and a huge waste of time, it's so much less effort to just exit out and get another group rather than drive yourself crazy over this issue. You can't control what other people do. There's no way that they could easily change the way this VP is coded to fix the issue. It's just not going to happen, and there's no way to make a big enough database to punish everybody who does this. Those are just impractical and emotional responses. What really needs to be done about this issue is people just need to be more willing to leave. If ever people leave, and then you can just go back and do it again if that's what you want. Or alternatively, just, I mean, it sounds bad to say this, it really does. You know, you'd hope that the evil players, the ones who are inconveniencing you, wouldn't be the ones running the game. But if you're going to have such a freaking heart attack over the shoppers, there are so many bigger issues in the game. I would consider greening to be a much bigger issue, because greening, there's no way to win. Greening takes it so that individual play no longer has any foreboding, because now you have to worry about these other people, and you can't stop them in some ways from stalling your run out, especially if you don't have help. If people are just leaving and they're essentially just taking their presence out of the game, it's very easy to make up for the fact that they're not there if you have a good strategy and good gameplay and you know what you're doing. So just for me and the way that I play the game, shopping's not a big deal. I can understand if you're running an Uber, or if you're someone who is very concerned about getting a perfect run every time, someone who's very concerned about not using any of their rewards or having anything go wrong, or really having to have the possibility of going sad. I actually just find the game more interesting when things go wrong. I don't like doing just simple key cutter runs with 8 tunes. So for me, when people leave, it just makes me excited, because I know I get to do a VP that might actually have a small amount of strategy in it, or a small amount of risk in it. So it's just a different perspective. And there's no right or wrong answer to this issue. I understand why a lot of people are really upset by it. And you know what? Maybe for good reason for them. But for me, it's just not a big deal. It's not something that I consider worthwhile getting riled up about. And if it's something that strongly pet peeves you, I would just recommend for you personally, maybe in some of those situations that you let your blood boil to 9,000 degrees, maybe you just need to hit the X button and try again and go with some different tunes. So these were just my opinions, as always. Not facts, just opinions. Thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video. Hope you're having a great day. Goodbye.